The grim darkness of the 41st millennium is an unforgiving abyss, a galaxy consumed by endless war, where hope is a dying ember. On countless worlds, humanity stands on the brink, besieged by horrors from without and within. But what if, into this maelstrom of despair, a star of impossible brightness were to fall? What if a hero forged not in the crucible of war, but in the fires of friendship and limitless potential, Weri Tuaribi? This is the story of the day a light pierced the void, and the dark city of Mordian Prime trembled. This is the tale of the star that fell, and the warrior named Goku. Mordian Prime. A tidally locked world bathed in eternal night, its surface a sprawling urban expanse of towering spires and disciplined order. The Mordian Iron Guard, renowned for their unwavering resolve and immaculate dress uniforms, stand as the planet's unyielding shield against the encroaching darkness. Day in, day out. The cycle is the same. Drills, patrols, and the constant, gnawing vigilance required when your world sits on the edge of the eye of terror. Life is a metronome of duty, service, and sacrifice to the God Emperor. But on this day, the rhythm of Mordian was shattered. It began not with a roar, but with a silent, blinding tear in the fabric of the void. A sphere of impossible energy, brighter than any star in Mordian's sky, streaked through the upper atmosphere. It wasn't a ship, not a missile, not any Xeno's craft known to the Imperium. It was pure, unadulterated light. It crashed into the desolate, under-patrolled sector Gamonine, a forgotten industrial wasteland miles from the primary hive spires. The impact was strangely contained, sending out a shockwave of energy that scrambled augurs and baffled astropaths, but caused little physical damage. It was a whisper, not a scream. A reconnaissance squad from the 8th Mordian Regiment, led by the grizzled Sergeant Kalen, was dispatched to investigate the anomaly. Their chimera, a PC, rumbled through the perpetual twilight, its searchlights cutting through the gloom. They expected to find a crater, wreckage, maybe the smoldering remains of a void-fearing creature. They found a man. He was standing in the center of a shallow, glassed depression, the ground still warm beneath his strange, brightly colored boots. He wore outlandish orange and blue clothing, utterly alien to the drab, functional aesthetics of the Imperium. His hair was a wild, spiky mess that defied gravity and all military regulation. But it wasn't his appearance that struck Sergeant Kalen. It was his eyes. They were wide dark, and filled not with malice or insanity, but with a profound, almost childlike confusion. There was an innocence about him, a complete lack of the hardened cynicism that defined every soul in this galaxy. As the guardsmen leveled their last guns, the man raised his hands in a gesture of peace. He spoke, but the words were a strange, flowing language none of them understood. A voxcaster crackled, attempting a translation based on archived linguistic data. The words were simple. Where am I? Who are you people? Before Callan could respond, a new threat emerged. The crash had not gone unnoticed. From the scrap heaps and rusted gantries of the industrial sector, a guttural roar echoed. The orcs. A feral warband, likely scavengers drawn to the energy spike, erupted from the shadows, their crude choppers glinting and sluggish barking. The Mordians instantly formed a firing line, their discipline absolute. For the Emperor and for Mordian, Callan bellowed, as a volley of lost fire tore into the charging green tide. But there were too many. The orcs were a wave of muscle and fury, closing the distance with terrifying speed. A massive knob, bellowing wog, swung a huge power claw, tearing a guardsman in two. The line was about to break. And then, the stranger moved. It wasn't a run. It was a blur. One moment he was standing by the crater. The next, he was in the thick of the orc horde. His movements were a symphony of impossible speed and precision. He didn't carry a weapon. He was asterisk. The weapon, an orc lunged and the man simply vanished, reappearing behind it to deliver a single, precise chop to the back of its thick neck. The greenskin dropped without a sound. Another charged, and he met it with an open palm strike that sent it flying backward into a dozen of its brethren, the impact like a cracked grenade. The Mordians could only stare, their last guns silent. He flowed through the battle like water, a whirlwind of orange and blue. He wasn't brutal or savage like the orcs. His attacks were clean, efficient, and devastatingly powerful. A flash of blue energy erupted from his hands, a concentrated beam that vaporized an orc deaf dread in a silent explosion of light. He moved with a joy, a thrill for the challenge, a smile occasionally flashing across his face as he dodged a clumsy swing. To the godsmen, hardened by countless battles against the horrors of the galaxy, it was the most terrifying and awe-inspiring thing they had ever witnessed. This wasn't a soldier, it was a force of nature. Within minutes, it was over. The orc warband, which would have cost the Mordians dearly, was annihilated. The lone figure stood amidst the carnage, panting slightly, that same confused but kind expression returning to his face. He turned to the stunned guardsmen and gave them a small, friendly wave. The voxcaster on Kelin's shoulder finally managed a coherent translation of the man's first words. "My name is Goku. I'm sorry, I seem to be a little lost. Can you help me?" Sergeant Callan lowered his lasgun. Every instinct, every piece of Imperial doctrine screamed heretic. Mutant, Xenos. But what he saw defied every law. The Adeptus Mechanicus held dear. This being had just saved his entire squad with power that could rival a Primarch. He was an anomaly, a paradox wrapped in an enigma, and he had just fallen onto one of the most rigidly controlled worlds in the Imperium. Kalen keyed his command vox, his voice steady despite the tremor in his soul. "Command, this is Sergeant Kalen. We have ... a situation. We have found the source of the energy reading. Send the Inquisitor, send every... You are not going to believe this. On Mordian Prime, a world of unending night, a new sun had risen. The Imperium of Man, a galaxy drowning in shadow, had just encountered a being of pure, unadulterated light. The arrival of Son Goku would send ripples across the entire galaxy. For the forces of chaos, for the Xenos empires, and for the Imperium itself, the game had just changed. The question was no longer asterisk, if asterisk humanity would survive, but what it would become in the light of this impossible star. The grim darkness had just met its most cheerful and powerful challenge. Thank you so much for watching this deep dive into a truly epic crossover. What do you think would happen next? How would the Inquisition, the Space Marines, or even the God Emperor himself react to Goku? Let me know your theories in the comments below. If you enjoyed this what-if scenario, please hit that like button and subscribe for more explorations into the wild what-ifs of your favorite universes. In the grim darkness of the 41st millennium, there is only war. On a million worlds, humanity stands besieged, its sprawling imperium assaulted from all sides by aliens, heretics, and demons. Hope is a forgotten luxury, a flickering candle against an oppressive, galaxy-spanning storm. But what if, into this despair, a different kind of light were to fall? Not the holy fire of the Emperor, but something brighter, something purer. This is the story of the star that fell on Mordian Prime, and the impossible hope it brought with it. Our tale begins on a world that knows no dawn. Mordian Prime, a tidally locked planet where one side perpetually faces its sun, searing it to glass, while the other is trapped in an endless, freezing night. It is in this eternal twilight that the city hive of Mordian stands, a bastion of imperial order and discipline. Its famed Iron Guard are the epitome of human resilience, their parade ground perfection matched only by their unwavering courage in the face of the horrors that claw at their gates. For generations, they have held the line, but even the strongest iron can be broken. The orcs come, a green tide of unimaginable savagery. A wogue that crashed against Mordian's defenses with the force of a tectonic plate. Day after agonizing day, the Iron Guard fought and died, their crisp uniforms stained with blood and soot, their disciplined volleys of lost fire answered by the deafening roar of crude but effective orc weaponry. Ammunition was running low. Reinforcements were a prayer that hadn't been answered. The line was beginning to buckle. Colonel Terron, a man whose face was a road map of 100 campaigns, watched from his command post as another section of the wall was breached. Despair, a foe more insidious than any Xenos, began to creep into the hearts of his men. It was then that the sky broke, not with the familiar green streak of an orc rock, nor the holy golden light of an imperial vessel. This was different. A blinding sphere of energy, pure and white, tore through the perpetual night. It streaked across the war-torn sky, a silent, blazing meteor that seemed to suck all sound from the battlefield. For a moment, human and orc alike froze, their primitive and sophisticated minds equally stunned by the celestial spectacle. The object didn't just fall, it guided itself, arcing away from the main hive and crashing into the desolate, icy plains miles from the front line. The impact was immense. A silent bloom of light that illuminated the entire hemisphere for a breathtaking second before plunging it back into darkness. Colonel Theron wasted no time. A potential new threat, a miracle. It didn't matter. It had to be investigated. He dispatched a scout patrol of his best men, led by the grizzled Sergeant Jocks. Their orders clear. Identify the object, assess the threat, and report back. Their Chimera transport rumbled across the frozen wastes, the only sound the crunching of ice under its treads and the anxious hum of its engine. The crater was massive, a perfect bowl carved into the permafrost, its edges glowing with a strange, residual warmth that defied the planet's bitter cold. And at its center, there was no twisted metal, no wreckage of a strange Xenos craft. There was only a man. He was standing, seemingly unharmed, clad in a bizarrely bright orange and blue uniform that was unlike any fatigues they had ever seen. His hair was a wild, spiky mess of black that stood on end, defying gravity itself. As Sergeant Jocks and his squad cautiously approached, weapons raised, they saw the man look around, a look of profound confusion on his face. He seemed innocent, almost childlike. When he finally noticed him, he didn't tense or reach for a weapon. Ehus smiled, a wide, friendly grin, and waved. "Hey, you guys know where I am. I was just about to have dinner when there was this big flash and, well, here I am." His voice was cheerful, devoid of the grit and grim authority they were used to. "Jocks, ever the professional," barked his orders. "Identify yourself. State your allegiance." The man just scratched the back of his head. My name's Goku. I don't really have an allegiance." Allegiance. "I'm from Earth." Earth Terra Jocks' heart skipped a beat. Could this be some kind of holy sign, a lost son of the throne world? But his appearance was all wrong. Too simple, too happy. Before they could interrogate him further, the Vox crackled to life with panicked screams. "Orcs! They're through the wire. Sector Gamanine is overrun. We're being slaughtered." Jocks' squad was the closest unit. Their duty was clear. "We're on our way," he yelled into the Vox, turning to his men. "Leave him. We have to ... But Goku was already looking in the direction of the battle. His cheerful demeanor vanished, replaced by a sharp, focused intensity. "It sounds like people are in trouble." Before Jocks could utter a word, Goku bunnies, not in a shimmer of a teleportarium, but in a blur of motion so fast it seemed to tear the air. One moment he was there, the next. A gust of wind was the only proof he ever had been. When Sergeant Jocks' Chimera arrived at Sector Gamanine, they weren't greeted by a massacre. They were greeted by a miracle. The battlefield was a scene of utter devastation, but only for the orcs. Greenskin bodies were strewn everywhere, broken and battered, their crude chappas and shutas twisted into scrap metal. The surviving guardsmen of the sectors stood in stunned silence, their lasguns lowered, staring at the impossible savior in their midst. Goku stood over the crumpled form of a massive orc warboss. Not a scratch on him. He had moved through the orc horde like a force of nature. A fist here, a kick there, blasts of concussive force, not from a weapon, but from his bare hands. He moved faster than a striking serpent, hit harder than a power fist. He had single-handedly, in a matter of minutes, repelled an attack that would have cost the lives of an entire regiment. He turned to the awestruck guardsmen and gave them that same disarming smile. "You guys all right?" One of the soldiers, a young trooper who looked like he hadn't seen 20 winters, simply nodded his mouth. The laws of physics, the doctrines of the Adeptus Mechanicus, the very realities of warfare as they knew them all had just been shattered by this strange, smiling man in orange. Back in his command center, Colonel Theron listened to Jox's frantic, unbelievable report. A man who could move faster than the eye could see. Who could shatter orc battleplate with his bare hands? It was a sea. It was impossibility, but the evidence was undeniable. Sector Gamonine was secure, and 100 good men were alive who should be dead. The colonel stared at the tactical map, at the single new icon Jox had placed over the crater, a simple, alphanumeric designation for an unknown entity. But to Theron, and soon to all of Modian, it would mean something more. It was the mark of the star that fell, the mark of the man named Goku. The implications were terrifying and exhilarating. The Inquisition would want his head. The Adeptus Mechanicus would want to dissect him. The Ecclesiarchy would either declare him a saint or a demon. But for now, on a world teetering on the brink of annihilation, this impossible man was their greatest weapon. The darkest night of Mordian Prime had just been pierced by the strangest of lights, and the grim darkness of the 41st millennium was about to learn a whole new definition of power. The story was just beginning. Thank you so much for watching this deep dive into our what-if scenario. If you enjoyed seeing Goku crash land in the world of Warhammer 40,000, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more chapters of this epic crossover. Let me know in the comments what you think the Imperium will do next, in the grim darkness of the 41st millennium, where every flicker of power is a candle flame attracting the moths of chaos. A new anomaly has appeared, a phenomenon so alien, so utterly incomprehensible, that it has shaken the very foundations of the Adeptus Mechanicus, and drawn the unblinking eye of the Inquisition. It all began with whispers from a forgotten corner of the galaxy, tales of a warrior whose power could shatter planets, a being who moved faster than thought. But it wasn't his strength that baffled the Imperium's greatest minds. It was the nature of his energy. Following a skirmish on a remote Imperial world, a contingent of tech priests from the Adeptus Mechanicus was dispatched to analyze the aftermath. The devastation was absolute, but the residual energy readings were impossible. The cogitators and ogres chattered in binary confusion. There were immense, almost immeasurable, spikes of power, yet they held none of the signatures of the warp, not a single trace of Empyrean taint, no psychic resonance, no whisper of demonic corruption. It was pure, raw power, existing entirely within the material universe. Te Khaled, it based on the warrior's own terminology. Ki, energy without the warp, power without corruption. This was the core finding of the Mechanicus report, a statement so heretical it bordered on madness. For millennia has been an absolute truth of the galaxy. Great power is inextricably linked to the psychics draw from its chaotic tides, risking their souls with every thought. Sorcerers bargain with its dark denizens for forbidden knowledge. Even the God Emperor's psychic might is a beacon in that turbulent sea. To suggest that a power source rivaling, and perhaps exceeding, that of a greater demon could exist without any connection to the warp, was to tear up the holiest of doctrine. The Magi ran every test, every diagnostic, every ritual of analysis. They compared the key signatures to everything they knew. The raw, untamed energy of the orcs, the ethereal grace of the Aldari, the cold, soulless power of the Necrons. None matched. Kiwa, a self-contained circuit. It was generated within a biological entity, refined through training and discipline, and unleashed with conscious control, all without piercing the veil between realities. This warrior, this Goku, was a living paradox. He was in Nullfield and a supernova all at once. The data was passed up the chain of command, encrypted and blessed with rites of warding, until it landed on the desk of an Inquisitor Lord of the Ordo Malleus. The air in his sanctum grew cold as he read the report. His knuckles, scarred and cybernetic, turned white as he gripped the data slate. The implications were horrifying. If such a power could be taught, if it could be replicated, it could shatter the Imperium's reliance on sanctioned psychers. It could create armies of warriors who could fight chaos on its own terms, without fear of possession or corruption. It would be the ultimate weapon. But to the Inquisition, anything that defies understanding is a threat. Anything that breaks the established laws of reality is heresy. Goku wasn't just a powerful alien. He was a walking, breathing doctrinal crisis. He did not register on psychic instruments, making him invisible to astropaths and immune to most forms of psychic assault. He was a blank slate to their most sophisticated tools of detection. Yet he could level a city block with a wave of his hand. How do you fight something you cannot sense? How do you contain a power that follows none of the rules? The debate raged in secret conclaves. The Mechanicus saw a new frontier of knowledge, the ultimate biological machine. Perhaps this key could be harvested, synthesized, or replicated through cybernetics. The potential to power their god machines without risky warp engines was a temptation almost too great to bear. The Astra Militarum saw the perfect super soldier, a being who could turn the tide against the endless hordes of Xenos and heretics. Imagine a regiment of guardsmen capable of firing energy blasts from their bare hands. But the Inquisition saw only the unknown, and the unknown breeds damnation. This key, this power born of serenity and discipline, was an affront to the suffering that defines the human condition. In a galaxy where every gift has a terrible price, Goku's power appeared to be free, and that was the most terrifying part of all. There had to be a catch, a hidden cost, a corrupting influence they simply hadn't found yet. Thus, the decree was made. This anomaly, this warrior named Goku, was to be classified as heresy, not a creature to be studied, but a reality-defying blight to be purged. Kill teams were assembled, drawing from the most elite chapters of the Adeptus Astartes, the silent assassins of the Officio Assassinorum, and the unyielding Grey Knights themselves. Their mission: to hunt down and erase this paradox from existence. They are hunting a ghost, a being who can appear and disappear in an instant. A warrior whose power level is, quite literally, off the charts. The Imperium of Man, in its boundless paranoia and rigid dogma, has declared war not on a man, but on Hanidea. The idea that power can exist without a price, that strength can be found without damnation. As the forces of the Inquisition close in, they are about to learn a terrible lesson. They are not hunting a heretic. They are hunting a force of nature. And in the grim darkness of the far future, a new legend is about to be forged in the fires of battle. A legend that will challenge everything the galaxy thought it knew about power itself. Thanks for tuning in for this deep dive into a galactic crossover. What do you think would happen when the Imperium finally confronts Goku? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this exploration, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you unit miss our next descent into the fascinating lore of these incredible universes. In the swirling, pestilential tides of the Immaterium, a profound and unsettling silence had begun to spread. It was a silence that grated against the cacophonous symphony of damnation, a purity that felt like acid to the raw stuff of chaos. The source, a tiny, insignificant world called Mordian Prime, had become a thorn in the side of the dark gods. The ripples of its anomalous calm were growing, a spreading stillness that threatened the very nature of the great game. For Nurgle, the Lord of Decay, this was an intolerable affront. The stagnation of his plagues, the quieting of his delightful diseases, was a personal insult. He would not send a mere champion or a favored demon. No, for this, he would dispatch a force of ultimate entropy. He would send his son. The sky above Mordian Prime, once a canvas of grim determination and disciplined fire, tore open. A wound in reality bled filth and despair, a sickly green-black rift that vomited forth the horrors of the warp. From this tear in space-time, the Death Guard emerged. Their armor, once the proud white and green of the 14th Legion, was now a canvas of corrosion, bloated with disease and weeping foul effluvia. Plague Marines marched in silent, inexorable lockstep, their bolters spitting death and their bodies hosts to a legion of demonic parasites. Blightlord Terminators, encased in grotesquely swollen cataphracti plate, teleported onto the battlefield, their weapons dripping with galaxy-ending contagions. Fetid bloat drones buzzed through the air like monstrous carrion flies, spraying streams of corrosive slime that melted steel and flesh with equal ease. The very air grew thick, heavy with the stench of decay and the buzzing of a billion flies. The Iron Guard, the legendary defenders of Mordian, stood their ground with suicidal bravery. Les Gonvolleys, disciplined and precise, flashed against the advancing tide of corruption, searing ceramite and sizzling putrid flesh. But for every plague marine that fell, 2 more seemed to rise in its place, their wounds sealing with necrotic flesh. The air itself became a weapon, a plague wine that carried Nurgle's rot, causing soldiers to collapse, their bodies spasming as they bloated and erupted in a final horrifique demisi. The resolute lines of the Iron Guard began to waver, their courage no match for the supernatural pestilence that sought to claim their world and their souls. Then, from the heart of the swirling vortex, a shadow fell. It was a presence that dwarfed all others, a being of immense power and bottomless despair. He descended on vast, tattered, insectoid wings, each beat stirring the plague wind into a gale. This was Mortarion, the demon primarch of the Reaper of Men. His immense scythe, Silence, hummed with captive malice, its edge capable of reaping souls as easily as wheat. He was clad in the Barbaran plate, a suit of power armor, so corrupted it seemed a living part of him, venting clouds of toxic fumes. A cowl hid his pallid, gaunt face, but the 2 baleful green lights of his eyes promised only a slow, agonizing end. As he landed, the very ground beneath his feet blackened and died, turning to a foul, muddy slurry. The hope that remained in the hearts of Mordian's defenders curdled and withered in his presence. From the command bastion, Goku watched the arrival of the monstrous being. He could feel the life force of the planet crying out, suffocating under the oppressive wave of death. He had felt powerful enemies before, beings of immense destructive capability like Frieza or Cell. But this was different. This wasn't just power, it was a perversion of life itself, a deep spiritual sickness that sought to corrode everything it touched. As Mortarion raised his scythe, preparing to deliver a final, soul-scything blow to the heart of the Mordian defense, Goku knew he could wait no longer. With a silent resolve, he vanished from the bastion. In the next instant, he appeared in the sky directly between Mortarion and the beleaguered Iron Guard. There was no grand explosion, no thunderous boom, just a soothing, brilliant eruption of golden light. Goku ignited his ki, transforming into a Super Saiyan. His hair flashed from black to brilliant gold, his eyes turned to piercing teal, and a coronia of pure, incandescent energy enveloped him. The effect was instantaneous and profound. The golden aura, a manifestation of pure life force and fighting spirit, acted as anathema to the corruption of The thick, cloying plague fog in his immediate vicinity vaporized, burned away like mist in the morning sun. The deafening buzz of demon flies fell silent as they were incinerated by the pure energy. The very ground, blackened and dead from Mortarion's touch, saw tiny, impossible blades of grass sprout and grow, reaching for the light. For the soldiers of Mordian, it was as if a crushing weight had been lifted from their souls. The despair that had choked them was replaced by a surge of awe and renewed hope. They stared at the golden figure in the sky, a beacon of defiance against the encroaching darkness. Mortarion recoiled, not from a physical blow, but from the sheer, undiluted purity of the energy radiating from Goku. It was an agonizing sensation, like being scoured by holy fire. The joyous plagues writhing within his form shrieked in pain. He looked at this strange mortal, this anomaly, and for the first time in millennia, felt a flicker of something other than morbid certainty. He saw no armor, no advanced weaponry, only a being of flesh and blood radiating a power that was the antithesis of everything he had become. Mortarion's voice was a rasping, gurgling sound, like a dying man drowning in his own phlegm. It carried with it the weight of 10,000 years of bitterness and decay. Goku's expression was grim, his usual cheerfulness replaced by a focused intensity. "I'm the one who's going to stop you," he replied, his voice clear and resonant. cutting through the din of battle. With a roar of fury and pain, Mortarion lunged. He swung his massive scythe Silence in a wide, horizontal arc. The ass screamed as the demonic blade cut through it, leaving a trail of shimmering, sleeting energy. It was a blow that could fell a greater demon, a strike that could cleave a battle tank in two. Goku didn't even move to dodge. He simply raised his forearm. The scythe crashed against his ki-infused limb with a cataclysmic clang, a sound that shook the very foundations of the city. The demonic energies of the blade sizzled and recoiled against Goku's golden aura, unable to touch his skin. Mortarion stared in disbelief. His ultimate weapon, a blade that had reaped countless heroes and worlds, had been stopped by a bare arm. Enraged, he unleashed the full force of his psychic and demonic power. He gestured, and a torrent of plague magic, a river of filth and disease known as the Stream of Corruption, erupted from his hand and surged towards Goku. It was a tide of concentrated entropy, capable of aging a man to dust in seconds. Goku met the attack with one of his own. He cupped his hands at his side, gathering his energy. Kamehameha, he yelled, thrusting his hands forward. A brilliant blue-white beam of pure ki shot forth, meeting the green torrent of filth head-on. Where the two energies collided, reality itself seemed to buckle. The sky became a maelstrom of color, the pure, brilliant azure of the Kamehameha, clashing violently with the sickly, pestilential green of Nurgle's curse. The energies fought for dominance, a visual representation of the battle between life and decay, creation and corruption. The Kamehameha, fueled by Goku's limitless spirit, began to push back, vaporizing the stream of filth and carving a path of purity through the sky. The resulting explosion was immense, a blinding flash of gold, green, and blue that forced even the hardened Death Guard to stagger back. The skies above Mordian Prime were now a battlefield in their own right. Mortarion took to the air on his tattered wings, his form silhouetted against the swirling green chaos of the warp rift. Goku, wreathed in his golden Super Saiyan aura, met him there. Their battle turned the heavens into a spectacle of impossible energies. Every clash of fist against corrupted armor, every parry of a ki blast against the scythe Silence, sent shock waves of golden and green light rippling across the clouds. Goku moved with incredible speed, a golden comet streaking across the sky, his movements a blur of precision and power. He was a living sun, his every strike burning away the demonic energies that clung to Mort. The demon Primarch, for his part, was impossibly durable, his Nurgle-blessed form regenerating from blows that would atomize lesser beings. He swung his scythe with grim determination, trying to land a single touch, a single scratch, that would infect his foe with the most potent diseases in the galaxy. But Goku's aura was a perfect shield, a burning declaration that corruption would find no purchase here. Down below, the battle had turned. Inspired by the duel in the sky, the Mordian Iron Guard rallied with a ferocity they had not known they possessed. They fought with the zeal of fanatics who had just witnessed their god join the fray. The Death God, their morale shaken by the raw power of their masterless opponent and the painful purity of his energy, found their inexorable advance grinding to a halt. The golden light from the heavens seemed to weaken them, to sap the unholy vitality from their bloated forms. This was no longer just a battle for a planet. It was a fundamental clash of cosmic forces, played out in the skies above a world of stalwart soldiers. The pure, vibrant life energy of a Saiyan warrior against the all-consuming, nihilistic decay of a chaos, God's chosen son. And as the sky bled gold and green, the fate of not just Mordian, but perhaps a small, newly cleansed corner of the galaxy, hung in the balance. Thank you so much for watching this chapter of our epic crossover. It's your support that makes these stories possible. If you enjoyed this cosmic clash, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel for more, and ring that notification bell so you don't miss the next thrilling installment. In the swirling madness of the warp, where gods of chaos fester and nightmares take form, a light pierces the gloom, not the cold, calculating gold of the Imperium, but something warmer, something purer. This is the story of a clash that shook the foundations of reality, a tale whispered in the dark corners of the galaxy. It is the story of how one man, a warrior of unparalleled spirit, faced a god of decay and answered with a blow that echoed through eternity. Imagine the scene. A battlefield choked with the stench of plague and despair. The Death Guard, legions of bloated, corrupted Marines, advance under the shadow of their master Mortarion, the Pale King, the Lord of Death. His grotesque form, a mockery of the noble Primarch he once was, looms over the field. His scythe, silence, whispers promises of a slow, agonizing end to all it touches. Before him stand the last vestiges of hope, their armor cracking, their spirits wavering. The air is thick with Nurgle's foul blessings, a toxic miasma that saps strength and will. And then he arrives. Not in a drop pod, not with a thunderous teleportation strike, but like a sudden sunrise. Goku, he stands there, his simple orange GI a stark, vibrant contrast to the rot and ruin surrounding him. He isn't a demigod forged in a lab, or a fanatical soldier of a dying empire. He is a man who has pushed the limits of his own mortality, time and time again, driven by a simple, unyielding desire to protect the innocent. Mortarion scoffs, his voice a wet, gurgling sound. He sees only another mortal, another piece of flesh to be consumed by the grandfather's garden. He raises his scythe, the energies of decay coalescing around its blade. "You reek of life," he rasps, "a fleeting warmth that I shall delight in extinguishing." Goku doesn't respond with a grand speech or a declaration of faith. He simply watcheth, his dark eyes taking in the suffering, the corruption, the sheer wrongness of it all. He sees the fear in the eyes of the mortal soldiers, the pain etched onto their faces. He feels the life force of the very planet groaning under the Plague Lord's touch, and in that moment, something within him ignites. It's not just anger, it's a profound, righteous fury. It's the protective instinct of a father, a friend, a guardian. The ground begins to tremble. A golden aura erupts around Goku, a torrent of pure, untainted energy that pushes back the toxic fog. The air clears. The oppressive stench of decay is replaced by the clean, electric scent of ozone. The Plague Marines recoil, their corrupted forms sizzling as if touched by holy fire. This isn't the Emperor's light. It lacks its psychic weight, its imperial dogma. This is something else. This is the light of a pure heart, magnified to an impossible degree. Super Saiyan, a term that means nothing in this universe, yet its power is undeniable. Mortarion's amusement turns to disbelief, then to rage. This mortal's power is an affront, a defiance of the natural cycle of decay and rebirth that he serves. Insolent. Nat, he bellows, charging forward with a speed that belies his bulk. The scythe silence cuts a green, sickly arc through the air, aimed to reap Goku's soul. Goku moves. He is a blur of orange and gold, weaving around the strike with an effortless grace that seems to mock the Primarch's ponderous might. He doesn't just dodge. He flows, a river of power against a mountain of corruption. Each parry, each block, isn't just a physical act. It's a statement. Life against death. Purity against filth. The battle is a maelstrom of conflicting energies. Mortarion unleashes plagues, swarms of demonic flies, and waves of necrotic force. He is a living conduit for the warp's most repulsive gifts. But Goku's aura is a shield, a perfect, incandescent sphere that vaporizes every curse, every disease that touches it. The flies turn to ash. The waves of death energy dissipate like mist in the sun. For the first time in millennia, Mortarion feels something other than cold certainty. He feels frustration. This single being is undoing the work of legions, defying the will of a god. He is a beacon of defiance that threatens to burn away the very essence of Nurgle's domain. Goku sees his opening. He knows he can't just defeat the Primarch's physical form. Mortarion is more than flesh and bone. He is a wound in reality, a bridge between the material world and the image. To win, he must strike at the very soul of the beast. He pulls his hands back to his side, cupping them together. A small, brilliant blue light begins to form between his palms. It hums with an energy that feels ancient and new all at once. It is the culmination of his own power, but also something more. It's the hope of the people he's fighting for, the life force of the planet, crying out for release, the echoes of every friend he has ever fought to protect. It is compassion and fury, woven into a single, devastating attack. Kami, Mi Mortarian, sees the growing light and recognizes the danger. This is no mere energy blast. This is anathema. It is a concentration of pure, ordered energy that threatens to unmake his chaotic existence. He gathers all his power, all the blessings of his foul patron, and unleashes a torrent of filth and entropy, a tsunami of pure warp corruption, aimed at snuffing out Goku's light before it can fully bloom. The two forces meet. For a moment, the world is consumed by a struggle between a sickly, swirling green and a pure, brilliant blue. The ground cracks. The sky splits, but Goku's will is absolute. He thinks of his home, his family, of every innocent life threatened by this cosmic horror. The blue beam of the Kamehameha wave doesn't just overwhelm Mortarian's attack. It consumes. Italiano. It blasts through the tide of corruption as if it were nothing. The beam is not just destructive. It is purifying. It is a cleansing fire that burns away the taint of chaos. It strikes Mortarian square in the chest, but it does not tear him apart. It does not incinerate his body. It does something far more profound. The light sinks into him, into the very core of his being, his demonic soul. It is like injecting sunlight into a creature of deepest shadow. For the Primarch, the pain is unimaginable. It's not physical pain, but a spiritual agony, a scouring of his very essence. He feels the millennia of corruption, the layers of Nurgle's gifts, being violently burned away. His form begins to flicker, to destabilize. The purifying energy is severing his anchor to the material realm. He is being rejected by reality itself. Across the galaxy, a tremor runs through the warp. Psychers on 1,000 worlds cry out as they feel a great evil being violently recoiled. In the Garden of Nurgle, the grandfather himself grumbles as one of his greatest champions is torn from his grasp. Mortarian screams. It is not a roar of defiance, but a shriek of pure, unadulterated terror and agony. His physical form dissolves into a torrent of foul light and screaming demonic faces. He is being forced back, banished not by psychic ritual or arcane lore, but by a single, focused application of pure spirit energy. A punch, made of light and hope, sending a Primarch screaming back into the hell that spawned him. The battlefield falls silent. The toxic clouds dissipate. The surviving Death Guard look on in stunned horror, their connection to their master severed. The Imperium's soldiers stare, their mouths agape, witnessing a miracle they cannot comprehend. There was no chant, no litany, no prayer to the Emperor. There was only a man, glowing like a star, who met the avatar of decay and told him, with one devastating blow, "You are not welcome here." Goku powers down, his golden aura receding. He stands for a moment, breathing heavily, before turning his gaze to the soldiers he just saved. He gives them a small, reassuring smile. The legend of the banishing blow would spread, a story that made no sense to the scribes of the Imperium, but gave a flicker of a new kind of hope to a galaxy drowning in darkness. Thank you so much for watching this epic what-if scenario unfold. If you enjoyed seeing Goku take on the forces of chaos, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe for more universe-shattering battles, and let me know in the comments who you'd like to see him face next. The battle for the Hive City was over, but a new war was just beginning, a war for the soul of the Imperium itself. In terrible strewn plazas and soot-stained basilicas, a new faith was taking root. Whispers turned to prayers, and prayers turned to worship. They called him Saint Solar, a golden-haired angel sent by the god Emperor himself. Godsmen, who'd witnessed his impossible strength firsthand, carved crude sunbursts into their armor. The downtrodden citizens of the Underhive, who'd only ever known darkness, now saw a beacon of pure, righteous light. They crafted makeshift icons, depicting a figure wreathed in golden fire, his face serene amidst the carnage. He was the answer to millennia of desperate pleas, the living proof that the Emperor had not abandoned them. But where the faithful saw a savior, the Inquisition saw a heretic of the highest order. A threat more insidious than any Xenos or demon. Some called him Saint Sola. Inquisitor Lord Valerius wrote in a coded astropathic message. Others, the false angel. To them, this Goku was a psychic anomaly, an unregistered and unsanctioned psyche of unimaginable power. His benign nature was the most terrifying part. It was a mask of clever deception to lure the masses away from the established creed of the ecclesiarchy. How could a being of such power exist outside the Emperor's divine framework? It was impossible, it was heresy, and heresy had to be purged with fire and fury. Inquisitorial conclaves were held in secret, their chambers thick with paranoia and incense. Agents were dispatched assassins from the Officio Assembly, grey knights in their gleaming silver armor, and even radical Ordo Xenos inquisitors who saw this alien as a potential weapon or a catastrophic danger. Their mission was clear: capture or eliminate the entity known as Goku. They spread counter-propaganda, painting him as a demon in human skin, a lure sent by the ruinous powers to shatter the Imperium's faith. They declared his miracles to be nothing more than profane sorcery, his kindness a trick to weaken humanity's resolve. The schism was born. This growing conflict was completely lost on the man at its center. Goku, the subject of prayers and damnations, was simply lost. He wandered the twisted metal canyons of the Hive City, a place so much darker and stranger than anywhere he'd ever been. He saw the statues being erected in his likeness, the people kneeling as he passed, and it just confused him. Why were they looking at him like that? He wasn't a god or a saint. He was just Goku, a martial artist from Earth. He tried to ask them, his questions simple and direct. Have you seen a short guy with spiky hair named Vegeta? Or do you know where I can find some good food? I'm starving. His innocence was disarming. He'd approach a group of heavily armed arbitrators, not with aggression, but with a friendly wave. Hey, you guys look strong. Want to spar a little? The hardened enforcers would just stare, their hands trembling on their shock mauls, unsure if they were facing a divine messenger or a diabolical trickster. He'd offer a senzu bean to a wounded guardsman, and when the soldier's mangled leg healed in an instant, it was hailed as another miracle, further cementing his holy status in the eyes of the common man. To the Inquisition, it was another mark against demon holy bioalchemy, a perversion of the flesh. The civil unrest escalated. Riots broke out between the newly formed solar cults and the traditional imperial creeded. Preachers from the ecclesiarchy stood on makeshift pulpits, screaming condemnations of the false angel, only to be shouted down by crowds chanting Saint Solar. The planetary defense force was fractured, with entire regiments declaring their allegiance to Goku. They saw him not as a strategic asset, but as a righteous cause. He had saved them when the commissars had only offered summary execution. He had fought for them when their commanders had abandoned them. Their loyalty was absolute. Goku, meanwhile, just wanted to find his friends. The names he spoke: Piccolo Gohan, Bulmauer, alien to the ears of this galaxy. They were recorded by inquisitorial spies as potential co-conspirators, a pantheon of this new, heretical faith. He'd sit atop the highest spire of the Hive, looking up at the unfamiliar, smog-choked sky, a profound sense of loneliness washing over him. He missed the blue skies of home. He missed the feel of his own world's key. This place, it felt heavy, suffocated by an endless, galaxy-spanning sorrow. It was a feeling he'd never experienced before. He was a simple man with a simple desire: to get stronger, protect his friends, and find his way home. Yet, in the grim darkness of the 41st millennium, simplicity itself was a radical act. His purity was a beacon that drew both moths and predators. The faithful flocked to his light, hoping it would burn away the corruption of their lives. The powerful sought to extinguish it, fearing the change it represented. Goku, the saint, the heretic, the false angel, stood at the eye of a storm he couldn't comprehend. A storm that threatened to tear the very fabric of the Imperium apart. All he knew was that he was alone, and a long, long way from home. He didn't want to be a symbol. He didn't want to be worshipped or feared. He just wanted to find a familiar face in a galaxy of strangers. as he looked out over the sprawling, violent city that now prayed to his name. A single thought echoed in his mind, clearer than any prayer or accusation. I wish I could just go home. But home was a concept that no longer seemed to exist. In its place was only the endless war of the 41st millennium, and a destiny he never asked for, thrust upon him by a desperate, dying empire. The creed of the Sun Warrior was not one of his own making, but it was one he would now have to navigate, whether he wanted to or not. Thank you so much for watching this chapter of our What If series. The story of Saint Solar is just getting started, and the forces moving against him are gathering in the shadows. What do you think will happen next? Let us know in the comments below. And if you're enjoying this journey into the grim darkness of the far future, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss the next thrilling installment. The air grows heavy, thick with the stench of ozone and sanctified steel. From the roiling skies, a storm of silver descends. Teleportation flares, blinding in their intensity. Deposit figures clad in ceramite armor, each one a walking fortress, a bastion of faith against the encroaching dark. These are not just space marines. These are the sons of Titan, the Emperor's final sanction against the demonic. The Grey Knights have come. At their head stands a figure of immense presence, his armor ancient and ornate, his eyes burning with the cold fire of 1,000 battles fought in realms of madness. This is Calder Drago, Supreme Grand Master of the Grey Knights, a legend trapped within the warp, yet whose will can pierce the veil of reality to lead his brothers. His gaze, a force of psychic might in itself, falls upon the strange warrior, Goku. By the Emperor's will. Drago's voice resonates, not just in the air, but in the minds of all present, a psychic pronouncement that brooks no argument. We are here to test the soul of this anomaly. The galaxy cannot afford another champion of chaos. There is no preamble, no negotiation. The librarians of the strike force step forward, their force hoods crackling with psychic energy. Their hands extend, and streams of ethereal blue light lance out, not to harm, but to probe, to dissect the very essence of Goku's being. They are searching for the slightest hint of corruption, the faintest whisper of the ruinous powers. Goku stands his ground, confused, but not hostile. He feels the strange energy wash over him, a mental scan far more intense than any he's ever experienced. The librarians delve deep, past his memories of battles and friends, past his scion heritage, into the core of his spirit. What they find astounds them. Grandmaster, one librarian reports, his voice tight with disbelief. There is ... nothing. No taint, no shadow. It is ... pure. Impossibly so. It's like a star, a font of positive energy that actively repels the taint of the immaterium. Drago's stern expression doesn't change, but a flicker of something unreadable passes through his eyes. Faith is the Grey Knight's shield, but their faith is built on vigilance and absolute certainty. An anomaly, even a pure one, is still an unknown. And in the grim darkness of the 41st millennium, the unknown is a threat until proven otherwise. Purity is not enough, Drago declares. The demons of the warp are masters of deceit. A soul can be a gilded cage, beautiful on the outside, but holding a monster within. We will see how this purity holds against the true face of the enemy. As if summoned by his very words, reality begins to tear. The sky bleeds, twisting into impossible colors. The ground cracks open, not with fire and brimstone, but with shrieking, gibbering madness. From these rifts in the fabric of existence, the legions of chaos pour forth. Plague bearers, bloated and dripping with filth, bloodletters, bellowing for skulls, horrors, cackling as they warp reality around them. A full-scale demonic incursion. The Grey Knights do not flinch. This is their purpose, their eternal duty. Wheat grease, or for the Emperor. They charge, their nemesis force weapons igniting with crackling blue energy. Stormbolters roar, firing blessed shells that detonate with sanctified fury, tearing through demonic flesh. Goku watches for a split second, his senses reeling from the sheer wrongness of these new foes. This isn't just a battle for physical supremacy. It's a battle for the soul of reality itself. He sees the Grey Knights fighting with a discipline and fury he respects, but they are outnumbered, a silver island in a tide of madness. He doesn't need to be asked. A golden aura erupts around him, a flare of pure, benevolent energy that causes the nearest demons to recoil, hissing as if burned by a holy fire. He powers up to Super Saiyan, his presence a beacon of defiance against the encroaching chaos. "I don't know who you guys are," Goku shouts over the din, a grin spreading across his face. "But anyone who fights creeps like these is a friend of mine." Banises, a blur of gold and blue, he appears in the thickest part of the demonic horde. He doesn't just punch or kick. His movements are imbued with his ki, a force anathema to the warp. Each blow doesn't just shatter demonic forms, it annihilates them, unraveling their very essence and sending them screaming back into the a great unclean one, a mountain of filth and disease, lumbers toward the Grey Knight's line, its plague sword dripping with cosmic contagions. Before its attack and land, Goku Isteri, planting his feet and unleashing a Kamehameha wave. The beam of pure energy, untainted by psychic phenomena, yet possessing a similar reality-warping power, strikes the greater demon head-on. The creature of Nurgle doesn't just explode. It is scoured from existence, its foul energies utterly neutralized by Goku's own. Prego watches, his force. Halberd cleaving a bloodthirster in two. He sees Goku fighting not with faith in a distant emperor, but with an innate, unshakable goodness. He sees Goku's energy, his ki, acting as a shield, a buffer that weakens the warp's influence on the material plane. The demons near Goku seem less substantial, their powers faltering. This warrior isn't just fighting them. He is actively purifying the battlefield with his very presence. The battle rages, a maelstrom of silver, gold, and chaotic horror. Goku and the Grey Knights fight back to back. An impossible alliance of faith and spirit. A librarian, nearly overwhelmed by a tide of Tisenchen horrors, finds himself suddenly clear as Goku's aura flares nearby, disrupting the psychic assault. A paladin, cornered by lithe demonettes, is saved as Goku appears, his speed too great for even the minions of Slaanesh to comprehend. Slowly, impossibly, the tide turns. The demonic horde, facing the unbreakable will of the Grey Knights and the overwhelming power of the Scion, begins to falter. The rifts to the warp shudder, their connection weakening under the dual assault of sanctified steel and pure ki. With one final, coordinated push, the last of the demons are banished. Silence falls upon the ravaged landscape. The sky returns to its normal color. The Grey Knights stand firm, their armor dented and scarred, their breathing heavy but their line unbroken. Goku powers down, his golden aura receding, leaving him standing amidst the fading remnants of chaotic energy. Kaldor Drago approaches him. The other Grey Knights watch, their hands still on their weapons, their vigilance absolute. The Grandmaster stops before Goku, the two warriors regarding each other in the silent aftermath. For a long moment, there is only the wind. Then, in an act that would shock any in the Imperium who witnessed it, Kaldor Drago, the supreme Grand Master of the Grey Knights, a living saint of battle, brings his fist to his chestplate in a warrior salute. "Your spirit is anathema to the archenemy." Drago's voice echoes in Goku's mind, devoid of its earlier suspicion, replaced with a deep, resonant respect. "We are the Emperor's demon hunters, but you are a light that casts out all shadows. We will report what we have seen. The Imperium may not understand you, but Chapter 666 will remember this day." With that, the Grey Knights shimmer, their forms dissolving in the telltale flare of teleportation, leaving Goku alone once more. He had faced the purest evil the galaxy had to offer and earned the respect of its most dedicated foes. But this encounter leaves a new question hanging in the air. If he is a light, how deep do the shadows of this new universe run? Thank you so much for joining me on this chapter of our epic crossover. The Grey Knights are one of the most hardcore factions in all of Foro, and seeing them alongside Goku was a blast to create. If you enjoyed it, please hit that like button. And if you haven't already, subscribe and ring that bell so you don't miss what happens next. Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. Today, we redive into one of the most epic crossover scenarios imaginable. What if the unstoppable force of an orkwog crashed headfirst into the immovable object that is Son Goku? Get ready, because we're exploring Chapter 8 of this incredible saga wog. The Green Gods meet the Golden One. So, picture this. Across the vast, war-torn expanse of the galaxy, a primal roar echoes through the warp. It's the sound of a billion orc throats, a psychic tsunami of pure aggression and the love of a good scrap. This isn't just any raid. It's a crusade of epic proportions. The two orc deities, Gork and Mork, have sensed a new kind of power. A light so brilliant and a fighting spirit so immense that it draws every orc warlord like a moth to a flame. They see a challenge worthy of their followers, a being they dub the Golden Warrior. This warrior, they believe, will provide the ultimate fight, a glorious battle that will be sung about for millennia. From every corner of the sector, the clans begin to unite. The brutal Goths, the flashy Bad Moons, the Kunin blood axes, and the spit-obsessed evil sons all put aside their endless squabbles. Under the monolithic banner of a single Colossal W. They have one shared goal. Find this Golden Warrior and give him a proper crumpin', or die trying in the most glorious way possible. Their combined psychic energy, the raw power of the WAAA gauge, warps reality itself, turning their ramshackle fleets into an unstoppable green tide, aimed directly at the source of this incredible power signature. And at the heart of this storm, this maelstrom of green-skinned fury, is our unsuspecting hero, Goku. Goku is just finishing up a light meal, probably enough to feed a small city when he feels it. Not a threat, not a malicious key, but an overwhelming wave of excitement. It's a raw, unfiltered desire for battle, so potent and pure that it actually makes him chuckle. He's never felt anything quite like it. It's not the cold ambition of Frieza, or the destructive madness of Majin Buu. This is fun. As the skies darken with the silhouettes of countless orc rocks and cruisers descending from orbit, Goku doesn't feel a shred of fear. Instead, a wide, eager grin spreads across his face. He stretches, his knuckles cracking like thunder. Wow, he thinks to himself, it sounds like they're having a party down there. I hope they brought something to fight. The first wave hits like a green avalanche. Boys, Nobs, and Gretchen pour from the landing craft. Their crude, noisy choppas and shootas, filling the air with a cacophony of violence. They charge forward, a roaring sea of muscle and mayhem. To them, this planet is just another prize, and the lone figure standing in their path is just the first obstacle to be smashed. A massive mob of boys, frothing at the mouth, swarms Goku. He just stands there, that same relaxed smile on his face. The first orc swings a rusty axe the size of a car door. Goku doesn't even move. He simply raises a single finger, catching the blade effortlessly. The orc's eyes widened in disbelief, a sentiment shared by the thousands watching. With a flick of his wrist, Goku sends the orc flying back into his own horde, creating a domino effect of tumbling greenskins. The orcs, however, aren't discouraged. This isn't a setback. It's a confirmation. This guy is asterisk, tough asterisk. This is exactly the fight they were promised. A wave of cheers erupts from the horde. Get him, lads. They roar, redoubling their efforts. Goku laughs out loud, a booming, joyous sound that momentarily drowns out the din of battle. All right, you guys are pretty strong, he shouts. He vanishes in a blur, reappearing in the middle of the horde. He moves like a phantom, a whirlwind of precise, non-lethal strikes. A tap here sends a knob spinning like a top. A gentle push there sends a squad of boys tumbling into a pile. He's not trying to hurt them seriously. He's treating this like a sparring session, a chaotic, planet-sized martial arts tournament. The orcs are having the time of their lives, even as they're being effortlessly tossed around. Watching from his command Gargant, the supreme war boss of this entire crusade, Garthok, The planet Breaka bellows with laughter. Garthok is a mountain of muscle and scar tissue, clad in mega armor cobbled together from defeated tanks and rival warbases. His power claw could crush a land raider. He sees Goku not as a threat to his conquest, but as the ultimate prize. So, the Golden gets got some Zogan fight in him. Good. He growls, his voice like grinding countenance. That's my fight. The rest of you lot, keep him busy. With a deafening roar, Garthok leaps from his gargant, the impact of his landing shaking the very ground for miles. The earth cracks beneath his iron-shod boots as he stomps towards Goku, his personal retinue of Meganobs thundering behind him. The clash is instantaneous and cataclysmic. Garthok's power claw swings down with enough force to shatter a mountain. Goku simply sidesteps, the claw carving a massive trench in the ground where he just stood. Whoa, careful with that thing, Goku exclaims with a grin. You could really break something. Garthok just roars and swings again and again and again. Their battle becomes a destructive dance across the planet's surface. Each mist swing from the warboss gouges canyons into the landscape. Each parry from Goku sends shockwaves that flatten forests and boil rivers. The sky itself seems to tear apart as their power levels clash. Goku, still holding back immensely, is having an absolute blast. The raw, physical power of the warboss is exhilarating. It's a refreshing change from the energy beam-slinging foes he's used to. Their duo rages across continents. They fight through desolate wastelands, their battle turning them into glass. They brawl atop the highest mountain peaks, shattering them into gravel. They even clash across the ocean, their blows sending tsunamis crashing against distant shores. The rest of the orc horde can do little but watch in absolute awe, their roars of encouragement shaking the heavens. This is the greatest fight they have ever seen. Tises R incarnate. Finally, Garthok, battered, bruised, but his spirit unbroken, gathers all his strength and the collective psychic energy of his entire WAAGH for one final, titanic blow. His power claw glows with an otherworldly green energy. What? He screams, a cry that is both a battle cry and a prayer to his brutal gods. Goku sees the attack coming. He recognizes the sheer power behind it. For the first time, his smile fades just a little, replaced by a look of respect. Okay, he says, his voice now serious. Time to get a little serious. As Garthok's attack descends, Goku's aura explodes. The ground shatters. The sky turns golden, and his hair flashes, just for an instant, to a brilliant gold. Super Saiyan. He doesn't meet the blow with a block, he meets it with his own punch. The collision of the Golden Warrior's fist and the green-skinned god's claw is absolute. There's no sound, just a blinding flash of pure energy that engulfs the entire hemisphere. When the light fades, the continent beneath them is fractured, massive cracks spreading across its surface like a broken plate. Garthok is on his back, his mega armor shattered, his power claw a mess of twisted metal. He's defeated, but he's grinning from ear to ear, a look of pure, unadulterated ecstasy on his face. He fought the Golden God and lived. Goku powers down, floating above him. He looks at the dazed but euphoric warboss, then at the scattered, cheering orc survivors, and then at the cracked and broken planet. He scratches the back of his head. Man, you guys are really fun, he says with a cheerful laugh. But you're sure are loud. With that, he simply vanishes, using instant transmission to head off in search of his next meal, leaving behind a legacy that the orcs will never forget. The Wog is broken. The orcs are scattered, but they aren't defeated, not in spirit. They have a new legend, a new god, to measure themselves against. The tale of the Golden Warrior who cracked a world with a single punch becomes the ultimate orc myth. From that day forward, every orc dreams of one day being strong enough to challenge him, to earn a glorious fight against the one who gave Garthok the best scrap of his life. And Goku, he'd probably be happy to oblige, as long as they let him finish his dinner first. And that's a wrap on this insane clash of titans. What a ride. The sheer joy of battle shared by both Goku and the orcs makes this one of the most unique and fun crossovers we could imagine. What do you think? Who would you want to see Goku face next in the 40K universe? Let me know down in the comments. If you enjoyed this epic tale, please don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the next chapter. Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we re-dive in deep into a crossover scenario that has sparked countless debates across fan communities. What if the pure-hearted Saiyan Goku met the pragmatic Primarch Robud Gilliman? Imagine the scene. The hallowed halls of the fortress of Hera unmake, a place steeped in 10,000 years of duty and war. And into this grim bastion of the Imperium steps a figure radiating not power in the way the galaxy understands it, but a blinding, almost naive sense of light and optimism. This isn't a story of battle, but a meeting of minds, a philosophical clash between two protectors from vastly different universes. Gilliman, the Imperial Regent, the Avenging Sun, has seen the worst the galaxy can offer. He's a demigod born for war, burdened by the immense, soul-crushing weight of a decaying empire. Every decision he makes is a calculated move in a cosmic chess game where the stakes are the survival of humanity itself. He is a being defined by loss, by duty, and by the grim necessity of violence. Then comes Goku, summoned, or perhaps drawn, to this nexus of imperial power. He arrives not as a conqueror or a threat, but with a disarming smile and an air of curious wonder. Imagine the Ultramarines, paragons of discipline, completely baffled by this orange-clad warrior who seems utterly unfazed by the gothic majesty and oppressive atmosphere of their home world. He doesn't carry the taint of the warp, nor the cold ambition of a Xenos warlord. To their astounded senses, he is simply pure. The meeting itself would take place in private, away from the prying eyes of the imperial court. Just two demigods. Face to face, Gilliman would be cautious, his mind a strategic engine honed over centuries, analyzing every nuance. He would probe Goku, questioning his origins, his motives, his understanding of strength. What purpose does your power serve? What kingdom do you protect? What sacrifices have you made? These are the questions that define Gilliman's existence, and Goku's answers would be so profoundly simple, yet so alien to the Primarch's worldview. He fights not for an empire or for galactic dominion, but to protect his friends, his family, and the innocent. He seeks strength not to rule, but for the challenge itself, to push his own limits, and to face opponents who can do the same. There's no grand strategy, no political endgame. There's only the immediate, heartfelt desire to do what's right and to test his own spirit. Think about Gilliman's reaction. He has spent his entire existence battling beings driven by insatiable hunger, dark ambition, and cosmic malice. He has witnessed firsthand the corrupting nature of absolute power. Yet, in Goku, he would sense none of that. Through his unparalleled perception, honed by millennia of war and statecraft, Gilliman would see no deceit, no hidden agenda, no trace of the darkness that plagues the galaxy. He would sense a power that dwarfs his own, a power that could potentially shatter worlds with a thought. Yet it is held in check by a simple, unyielding compassion. This would be a paradigm-shifting moment for the Primarch. In a universe where power is synonymous with corruption and tyranny, Goku stands as a living paradox. He is a testament to the idea that strength can be wielded with innocence, that immense power does not have to lead to a thirst for domination. It's a concept so foreign to the 41st millennium that it would be almost unbelievable. Yet there Goku stands a living, breathing refutation of the grim darkness. Gilliman might ask him about peace. For the Primarch, peace is a distant, almost a mythical dream, an abstract concept to be achieved through brutal, unending war. It is the Pax Imperialis, enforced by the bolter and the chainsword. But for Goku, peace is the natural state of being. It's the time between threats, a time to spend with loved ones, to train, and to enjoy a good meal. It's not an ideological goal, but a simple, desirable reality that he is willing to fight and die for. He doesn't want to enforce his peace on others, He just wants to protect his own. The conversation would turn to the nature of strength itself. Gilliman sees strength as a tool, a necessary burden to lead and protect humanity. It is a means to an end, often a grim and bloody one. He carries the weight of his strength like a crown of thorns. Goku, on the other hand, revels in his strength. It's a source of joy, a path to self-improvement. The struggle, the fight, the act of pushing beyond his limits, this is what makes him feel alive. He doesn't see power as a burden, but as a gift, one that allows him to protect those he cares about and to experience the thrill of a good fight. This stark difference would be fascinating. Gilliman, the strategist, would be looking for a weakness, a flaw in this simple philosophy. How can you protect everyone? How do you deal with an enemy that cannot be reasoned with, that cannot be redeemed? And Goku's answer would likely be, I'll just get strong enough to stop them. It is a solution that bypasses all the complex, moral and strategic calculus that defines Gilliman's life. It's the logic of the heart, not the mind. As their meeting concludes, Gilliman would be left with a profound and unsettling realization. He has met beings of immense power before demons, Xenos, tyrants, even his own fallen brothers. But Goku is something else entirely. He is not a product of the Materium's cruel evolution, nor is he a creature of the warp's chaotic whims. He is an anomaly, a beacon of impossible hope in a hopeless age. And so, as Goku prepares to depart, perhaps with a friendly wave and a promise to visit again, Gilliman would bestow upon him a title, one born from his own weary, yet astute, observation. He would not call him a Xenos or an anomaly. He would look at this being of impossible power and even more impossible goodness and call him what he truly is, a warrior of the light from beyond the stars. A flicker of hope, a reminder that even in the darkest of universes, the concept of a true hero can still exist. It's a thought that would linger with the Lord of Ultramar long after this strange, cheerful warrior has gone, a single point of light in the unending darkness. What do you guys think? How would this meeting change Gilliman's outlook on the galaxy? Let me know your theories in the comments below. It's a fascinating what if that really highlights the core themes of both universes. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this deep dive into a legendary crossover, please hit that like button and consider subscribing for more content like this. Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we re-dive in deeper into a crossover that has captured all of our imaginations. What if Goku landed in the grim darkness of the 41st millennium? In our last chapter, we saw Goku triumph over a horde of orcs, his incredible power drawing the attention of beings far beyond the material realm. But not all attention is a good thing. Today, we journey into the heart of madness, into the very domain of a god. This is Chapter 10. The shadow of Xen. In the swirling, chaotic sea of the image, where thoughts are things and nightmares walk, a singular consciousness took notice. This was no mere demon or petty sorcerer. This was Tzinch, the chaos god of change, the architect of fate, the weaver of destinies, he who sees all paths, all futures, all possibilities, had just witnessed an impossibility. He had seen a soul of such purity and immense power that it stood as a beacon of defiance against his very nature. A soul that could not be twisted, could not be corrupted, could not be changed, and in the grand, unknowable tapestry of his schemes, this was an unacceptable thread. Goku's existence was an anomaly, a variable that Tzinch's infinite calculations had failed to predict. The Saiyan's pure heart and straightforward nature were anathema to the Lord of Lies. How could you manipulate a being who desires nothing more than a good fight and the safety of his friends? How do you tempt a man whose spirit is a sun, burning away the shadows of doubt and deceit? Tzinch Goku wasn't just a powerful warrior. He was a fundamental threat to the very concept of chaos. He was a symbol of order, of unchanging will, in a universe Tzinch sought to drown in perpetual flux. This single, powerful soul threatened to unravel eons of carefully laid plans. The architect of fate could not abide such a flaw in his grand design. The Saiyan had to be dealt with, but a direct confrontation was not Tzinch's way. Why use a hammer when a poisoned whisper would suffice? His gaze turned from the swirling chaos of the warp to the cold, logical realm of the material universe, settling upon the Adeptus Mechanicus. The tech priests of Mars, in their ceaseless quest for knowledge and forgotten technology, were perfect pawns. They yearned for understanding, for the secrets of the Omnissiah, and Tzinch was the greatest giver of forbidden knowledge in the galaxy. He began to weave his intricate web. Whispers slithered into the minds of ambitious archmagi and disillusioned tech adepts. They came not as demonic roars, but as flashes of inspiration, as sudden solutions to impossible engineering problems. They appeared as fragmented data streams, promising blueprints for a device of unimaginable potential. The adepts believed they were on the verge of a breakthrough, a dimensional gateway that would allow them to peer into other realities, to harvest knowledge and technology from beyond the veil. They called it the Omniscope, a tool to gaze into the infinite possibilities promised by their machine god, were promised enlightenment, discovery, the fulfillment of their sacred quest. They were, of course, being lied to. On a forge world shrouded in toxic smog, construction began. The Mechanicus adepts, their minds subtly tainted by the Changer of Ways, worked with a feverish zeal they mistook for holy inspiration. They built a grand and terrible machine, a ring of shimmering metal and crackling energy conduits, inscribed with circuits that subtly twisted into the sigils of the Chaos God. They saw only progress, a monument to their genius. They were blind to the true purpose of their creation. This was no gateway for observation. It was a syringe, a needle designed to pierce the thin veil between realities. Tzinch did not want to look into Goku's universe. He wanted to infect it. He planned to inject a torrent of raw mutagenic warp energy, a plague of pure chaos, into a reality utterly unprepared for its corrupting influence. The architect of fate watched, his multifaceted mind tracking every rivet, every power coupling, every whispered prayer to a false god. The trap was being set. The Mechanicus believed they were building a telescope to view a new star. In reality, they were building a cannon, aimed directly at the heart of an unsuspecting universe. Tzinch's plan was twofold. First, he would unleash his corrupting influence upon Goku's home, forcing the Scion to confront a new kind of horror. He would see his world, his friends, his family, twisted into monstrous parodies of themselves. He would face an enemy that couldn't be punched, a foe that attacked the very soul. Tzinch hoped to break Goku's spirit, to force upon him a despair so profound that his pure soul would finally crack, becoming susceptible to change. And second, by studying Goku's reaction and the interaction of his unique energy with the warp, Tzinch would finally understand this anomaly. He would learn how to dissect it, how to control it, and ultimately, how to weave it into his own grand, malevolent design. The greatest warrior of one universe was about to become the subject of the most horrifying experiment conceived by another. The construction of the gateway neared completion. The air around the forge world grew thin, and shadows seemed to stretch and writhe in the corners of vision. The veil between worlds was already weakening. Soon, the gateway would activate, and the first wave of Tzinch's gift would be unleashed. The shadow of the Architect of Fate was long, and it was about to fall over a world that had never known the true meaning of chaos. What will happen when this gateway opens? How will Goku and his friends react to an invasion of pure, mutating madness? That's where we'll leave it. For today, the stakes have been raised to a cosmic level. An actual chaos god has entered the game, and his target is the very soul of Goku's universe. Thank you so much for joining me on this wild journey. If you enjoyed this chapter, please hit that like button. And if you haven't already, subscribe and ring the bell so you don't miss the next thrilling installment. Let me know in the comments below what you think will happen when the forces of chaos meet the Z-Fighters. Hello everyone, and welcome back. Today, we dive headfirst into the swirling vortex of chaos as our epic crossover continues. The stage is set, the players are in position, and the very fabric of reality is about to be torn asunder. Let's get right into it. Hope, a voice, ancient and dripping with malice, echoed through the void, is the rarest sin. Those words hung in the air, a chilling premonition of the nightmare about to unfold. The Grand Portal, a masterpiece of forbidden technology and arcane ritual, pulsed with a malevolent light. It was no longer just a gateway, it was a wound in the universe, and from it, the raw, unfiltered essence of the warp began to bleed. Demonius, a torrent of pure chaos, surged forth. This wasn't a simple invasion of creatures. It was a metaphysical plague. Across the targeted sector, planets began to contort. Skies bled psychedelic colors. Oceans boiled into clouds of screaming vapor, and the very ground writhed as if in agony. Physics became a suggestion. Reality, a half-remembered dream. Buildings twisted into impossible shapes, and the laws of nature buckled under the immense pressure of the image. For the first time in a long while, Son Goku felt a genuine spike of dread. He had faced gods, destroyers, and beings of unimaginable power, but this was different. This was not a physical threat to be punched or a beam to be countered. It was a spiritual poison, an existential corruption. He saw the trillions of life signs across countless worlds flicker, their psychic screams echoing in his mind. The trap, so cleverly laid, snapped shut. He had been lured here not to fight an army, but to witness the damnation of a galaxy. But Goku is not a being who surrenders to despair. As the psychic shockwave of terror and pain washed over him, his instinct, honed by a lifetime of protecting the innocent, took over. A brilliant, golden aura erupted from his body, his ki flaring to an astronomical level. Yet, this wasn't the aggressive, focused energy of a Super Saiyan ready for battle. It was different. Broader. Softer. It was a shield. His energy expanded outwards, not as a Kamehameha wave, but as a vast, celestial net. It was a desperate, impossibly vast undertaking. He was trying to cast a protective blanket over billions upon billions of souls, shielding them from the raw, soul-shredding touch of the warp. It was a feat of ki control so immense, so delicate, that it dwarfed any power-up he had ever achieved. He was holding back an ocean of madness with nothing but the strength of his own spirit. On the decks of the Grey Knight strike cruiser, the scene was one of grim determination. These were warriors who stared into the abyss daily, but even they were staggered by the scale of this incursion. They saw Goku, this strange, powerful Xenos, become a beacon of pure light against the encroaching darkness. They didn't understand his power, but they understood his intent. He was standing between the innocent and damnation. A deep, resonant chanting began to fill the bridge of the Sword of Titan. The Grey Knights, led by their Grand Master, began to recite their ancient litanies of banishment and faith. Corruptio non prae valebit. Their voices boomed in unison, a chorus of unwavering will. In nomine imperatoris habeamon spiritus. Each word was a psychic hammer blow, a ward of spiritual iron reinforcing the very air around their fleet. They were adding their own considerable psychic might to the struggle, not to attack, but to support the Golden Warrior, to strengthen the barrier he was projecting. But the warp is a tide of infinite malevolence. For every soul Goku shielded, the demonic energy surged stronger, angrier, seeking purchase. It was like trying to cup water in his hands. The corruption seeped through the cracks. It found the one conduit, the one anchor holding back the flood. Goku himself, the golden light of his aura began to flicker, tainted by shades of sickly, purple, and nauseating green. The corrupting energy, unable to reach the populations he was protecting, began to pour into him. It was a deluge of pure chaos, a torrent of every negative emotion, every vile thought, every whispered sin from a million worlds. Pain, unlike any physical blow, lanced through his mind. He saw visions of unending slaughter, felt the despair of dying stars, and heard the seductive whispers of dark gods promising power in exchange for his soul. The Grey Knights watched in horrified awe. The Xenos was absorbing the corruption. He was willingly, or perhaps instinctively, taking the full, concentrated dose of warp poison into his own being to spare others. It was an act of sacrifice so profound it bordered on madness. His muscles tensed, veins of dark energy tracing paths across his skin. A guttural scream tore from his throat, not of pain, but of a desperate, titanic struggle. His pure, good-natured ki was at war with the very essence of evil, and the battlefield was his own soul. The golden aura, once a symbol of hope and power, was now a swirling vortex of light and shadow. The purity of his spirit was the only thing preventing him from being instantly consumed, transformed into a monstrous creature of chaos, a demon prince of unimaginable power. The chants of the Grey Knights grew louder, more desperate, their psychic energies forming a fragile bulwark around him, a final line of defense against the abyss he was swallowing. But they all knew this couldn't last. Goku, the Protector, was becoming a vessel for the very thing he fought against. The corruption was unleashed, and its new home was the body of the strongest warrior in the universe. The true battle had just begun. What an absolutely insane cliffhanger. The stakes have been raised to a galactic level, and Goku is facing a threat that he can't simply punch his way out of. What happens when a being of pure good is filled with pure evil? We'll have to find out next time. Thank you all so much for joining me on this wild ride. If you're enjoying this crossover saga, do me a huge favor and hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring that notification bell so you don't miss the next chapter. Let me know in the comments what you think will happen to Goku. Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're rediving deep into a moment that has sent shockwaves through both the Dragon Ball and Warhammer 40k fan communities. We're talking about the climactic finale of the Goku and Warhammer crossover series, specifically Chapter 12, titled Instant Transmission. The tagline alone gives me chills. He chose the path of light and vanished. This isn't just an ending, it's a statement, a heroic act of unimaginable scale, and we're gonna break it all down. So, let's set the stage. The situation is dire, catastrophic even. The forces of chaos have done the unthinkable. They have managed to infect Goku. Not just physically, but spiritually. Imagine a being of pure light, a warrior whose very essence is tied to ki. 2. Life energy being tainted by the ultimate corruption of the warp. The infection isn't a simple wound that can be healed or a poison that can be purged. It's a fundamental corruption of his soul, a parasitic darkness that seeks to consume his light and turn him into the very thing he fights against. The best efforts of the Imperium, even the combined might of its psychers and the arcane knowledge of the Grey Knights, are powerless against this specific type of defilement. It's a spiritual cancer, and it's spreading. This is where the genius of this chapter truly shines. We, as fans, are conditioned to expect a fight. We expect Goku to power up, to find a new transformation, to overcome the darkness with an even greater display of power. Super Saiyan Blue, Ultra Instinct. We've seen him break his limits time and time again to defeat evil. But here, the enemy isn't an external foe he can punch. The enemy is inside him. To fight it with raw power would be like trying to put out a fire by throwing more fuel on it. Any massive expenditure of ki would likely just accelerate the chaos infection, feeding the very entity that's trying to consume him. This is a battle Goku cannot win with his fists. And in this moment of terrifying realization, Goku makes a choice that redefines heroism for this entire crossover. He understands that the breach in reality, the very tear that allowed chaos to spill into the material universe with such force, is anchored to the conflict. It's a gaping wound in the fabric of space-time, and his struggle, his immense power, is keeping it open. As long as he's there, as long as he's a focal point of this cosmic battle, the gateway for chaos remains. He looks at the battlefield, at the desperate faces of the Space Marines, at the stoic, burdened expression of Robot Gilliman, the Primarch himself. He knows what he has to do. He doesn't power up to fight. He powers up to leave. This is the critical moment. Goku begins to channel his energy, but it's not the explosive, aggressive aura of a Super Saiyan. It's a calm, focused, and intensely brilliant light. It's the light of a man who has made peace with his fate. He's gathering every last ounce of his power, not for a final Kamehameha, but for one last, perfect, instant transmission. This isn't just a teleportation technique anymore. In this context, it's a surgical tool, a key to lock a door that threatens to devour a galaxy. His goal is no longer victory. It's containment. He places 2 fingers on his forehead, the iconic stance we all know and love. But this time, it's filled with a profound sense of finality. He looks at Gilliman, a being he has come to respect as a fellow warrior and protector. There's no grand speech, no long, drawn-out farewell. Just a simple, powerful message that encapsulates everything Goku stands for. He says, protect your people. They're strong too. This is Goku's ultimate vote of confidence in humanity, in the Imperium. He's not just saving them. He's telling them they have the strength to save themselves. He sees their resilience, their indomitable will to survive against impossible odds, and he acknowledges it. He's passing the torch. And then, he's gone. In a flash of pure, golden light, Goku vanishes. But he doesn't just teleport to another planet or another side of the battlefield. The energy of his departure, amplified by the chaos infection trying to hold him, creates a unique reaction. As he tears himself out of this reality, he pulls the edges of the warp breach with him. The act of his instant transmission becomes the seal itself. The immense power required to transport his chaos-stained form across dimensions is what slams the door shut on the demonic incursion. He doesn't just escape the breach. His escape is what seals it. He takes the infection, the source of the problem, with him, effectively quarantining himself from the universe to save it. It's a heroic sacrifice, but not one of death. It's a sacrifice of exile. He has condemned himself to an unknown fate, lost somewhere in the space between dimensions, to ensure the safety of others. The aftermath is just as powerful. The battlefield falls silent. The overwhelming pressure of the war proceeds. The demons, cut off from their source, either dissolve or are easily dispatched. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, there is a moment of peace. Gilliman stands there, watching the spot where Goku disappeared. The warrior's final words echoing in his mind. They're strong too. It's a moment of profound reflection for the press. He has just witnessed an act of self-sacrifice from an outsider, a Xenos, by imperial definition, that rivals the greatest heroes of the Imperium. It challenges his worldview, forcing him to see strength not just in dogma and warfare, but in hope and trust. Goku's sacrifice becomes a legend, a whispered myth among the ranks of the Ultramarines. The story of the strange, golden-haired warrior who appeared from the stars, fought with the power of a god, and then vanished to save them all. He becomes a symbol, not of brute force, but of a different kind of strength, strength to choose sacrifice over a tainted victory. He chose the path of light, and by doing so, he became the light that guided the Imperium out of one of its darkest hours. He didn't die a martyr's death. He embraced a lonelier, more profound fate. He became a guardian in exile, a perpetual wanderer sealing a darkness within himself. This conclusion is so incredibly fitting for Goku's character. He has always been a protector, first of his friends, then his planet, and then his universe. Here, he extends that protection to a completely different reality. A grimdark universe that is so often devoid of hope. He doesn't change the fundamental nature of the 40K universe. It's still a brutal and unforgiving place, but he leaves behind a spark, a memory of a different way. A reminder that even in the face of absolute corruption, the choice to protect others, the choice to embody light, is the most powerful weapon of all. What do you all think of this ending? Was it the perfect conclusion for Goku's journey in the 40K universe? Or were you hoping for a final, cataclysmic battle? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. This is one of the most compelling crossover concepts I've ever seen. And this ending was just masterful. It honored both franchises perfectly. Thank you so much for watching and for joining this discussion. If you enjoyed this breakdown, please consider hitting that like button and subscribing to the channel for more content like this. Ring that notification bell so you don't miss our next deep dive. Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we reach the epic conclusion of a saga that has bridged universes. A story that asked, what if Son Goku fell into the grim darkness of the far future? We've journeyed with him through the horrors of the 41st millennium, and now we witness the final echoes of his incredible presence. This is Chapter 13. Echoes of the Saiyan. He left, but his legend remained. After his final, reality-shaking battle against the forces of chaos, after staring into the abyss and showing it a smile, Goku Bunnies, he returned to his own time, his own reality, leaving the Imperium of Man forever changed. The ripples of his departure spread from the throne world of Terra to the furthest reaches of the galaxy. On Terra, within the impossibly vast halls of the Imperial Palace, something stirred. A flicker in the psychic beacon that is the Emperor of Mankind, silent for 10,000 years. A corpse upon a golden throne seemed to acknowledge the passing of the strange, golden warrior. His psychic light, the very thing that guides humanity through the treacherous currents of the warp, pulsed with a warmth and clarity it hadn't known in millennia. It was as if the master of mankind himself was nodding in respect to the one being who defied the very nature of the warp, not with faith, not with dogma, but with a pure and indomitable spirit. The High Lords of Terra, ever watchful for omens and signs, could not ignore such a profound event. The ecclesiarchy, the state church of the Imperium, was thrown into a frenzy of theological debate. This warrior, this Solaris, fought with the light of a sun, banished demons with the might of a god, yet he held no faith in the Emperor as a divine being. He spoke of friendship, of pushing past limits, of protecting the innocent. He was an anomaly, a paradox that the rigid doctrines of the Imperium could not easily contain. But his power was undeniable. His sacrifice, his purity in the face of ultimate corruption, was a miracle. And so, a new saint was canonized, a name to be whispered in prayer by the trillions of faithful across the galaxy. They would not call him Goku. That name was too alien, too simple. They needed something grand, something that fit within their Gothic tapestry of saints and martyrs. He was named Solaris Invictus, the unconquered sun, a saint of impossible strength, a symbol of hope in the darkest of ages. But he was also given another title, one whispered by the more radical elements of the a title that hinted at the truth, the light without faith. He was a testament that righteousness could exist outside their doctrines, a concept both terrifying and inspirational. Across the countless worlds of the Imperium, the story began to spread. At first, it was just whispers among the soldiers who had witnessed his impossible feats on besieged worlds. They spoke of a golden warrior descending from the heavens, his laughter echoing even as he shattered the ranks of their most hated enemies. They told tales of a man who could catch lost blasts in his bare hands and unleash beams of pure energy that scoured chaos from the battlefield. In the seedy underhives of Necromunda, gangers started painting golden halos on their armor, a new symbol of ultimate power and defiance. On Forge Worlds, tech priests debated the nature of his energy, trying to quantify the unquantifiable, to put dogma and logic to the miracle they had witnessed. Even among the stoic and proud Space Marines, chapters that had fought alongside him recounted the tale of the strange mortal who fought with the strength of a Primarch and the joy of a child. They spoke of his kindness, a stark contrast to the grim duty that defined their own existence. He showed them that there could be light and laughter even in the heart of war. The legend twisted and turned as it traveled. On some wars he was described as an angel of the Emperor, a lost son returned. On others, a mythical figure from humanity's golden past. But some elements always remained the same. The brilliant golden hair, the radiant aura, and the smile. That was perhaps the most enduring part of his legend. In a galaxy where there is only war, where suffering is a constant, the idea of a warrior who faced the ultimate evil and smiled while doing it was the most potent miracle of all. He didn't just fight chaos. He rebuked its very essence. The despair, the hatred, the rage that fueled the dark gods, they all broke against the simple, unyielding cheerfulness of Son Goku. Even the forces of chaos remembered him. Demons whispered his name in the Immaterium, a curse and a mark of shame. He was the anathema's anomaly, the one who didn't play by their rules. The shining light that had burned them in a way even the Emperor's power no longer could. He was a wound in their pride, a memory of a being so pure that their corruption could find no purchase. And what of the elder? The ancient and dying race watched from the shadows, as they always do. Farcers who had foreseen his arrival and departure now looked into their skeins of fate and saw a new thread, a thin, golden line of hope woven into the tapestry of despair. He was a shock to their system, a force of nature they hadn't predicted, and his legacy offered a possibility, or Burslim, that the galaxy was not doomed to be consumed by the Great Devourer or the Great Enemy. He proved that the cycle of destruction could be broken. On a forgotten moon, an inquisitor of the Ordo Xenos stands before a crude shrine. It's not sanctioned, not official, but it's there. A simple carving in the rock depicts a figure with spiky hair, surrounded by a radiant sunburst. The Inquisitor, a man who has seen the worst the galaxy has to offer, looks at the carving and allows himself a small, rare smile. Solaris Invictus. The light without faith. A hero who reminded them all what it truly meant to be strong, not just in body, but in spirit. Goku was gone, but his echo, his light, would shine in the grim darkness for millennia to come. A story told two children on beleaguered worlds, a prayer on the lips of a dying soldier, a legend of a golden warrior who fought chaos and smiled. His spirit became a new star in the firmament of the 41st millennium, a beacon of pure, unadulterated hope. And in a galaxy defined by hopelessness, that was the greatest victory of all. Thank you so much for joining me on this incredible crossover journey. It's been an absolute blast to create, and I'm so grateful for all your comments and support along the way. What did you think of this finale? Let me know down below. If you enjoyed this series, please consider hitting that like button. And if you haven't already, subscribe and ring that bell so you don't miss what's coming next. Thank you again, and I'll see you in the next video.